This is Edge of the Box, a podcast brought to you by WhoScored.com.
Hello, welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored.com. It's episode 4 of 8 of our Euro 2020 specials, and I'm joined as ever by Martin Laurence and Jonathan Wilson to chew over the fat. And unfortunately, guys, we've got to start by chewing over the England-Scotland game on Friday. Absolute classic at Wembley. Pure football all round, Jonathan. A horrible night, really, wasn't it?
It was all right. It was a game of football. I mean, football's not always brilliant.
No.
But I don't know. I just like clearly England didn't play well. Let's not pretend that they did. But the level of reactions just been.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's one of the reasons why England never do well is the stupidity of a reaction, both from people who clearly just don't watch football very much, people who seem to treat the national side as with a totally different standard how they treat the club game, and to be honest, pundits and journalists who should know better and shouldn't get caught up in the hysteria.
Yeah, it wasn't. My main gripe, Martin, I think, from the game was just the slowness of England's build-up play. It was so slow. You know, play the game with some tempo. I know the weather was perhaps a little bit of a leveller, but Scotland popped the ball around quite nicely, I thought.
Yeah, I think they probably caught England by surprise a little bit with their selection and just the fact that they did go for sort of ball players in that middle of the park. It was interesting that all three of their sort of central midfield trio, so that's Gilmour, McGregor and McGinn, all boasted a pass accuracy in excess of 90%, which against England you would just never have predicted. So that does tell you how sort of cautious England were. They didn't really press them. And obviously that's the main stick that Southgate's got. But there were a few problems, I think. There was another issue, obviously, with Kane, which we'll get onto, and Foden again was quite a struggle to get him into the game. I thought that was one of the things I took away from it was obviously we respected that Scotland's left side is their sort of strong side. But where in the first game, Phillips was the one who was sort of pushing forward on the right side to support Foden, that just never happened. He sat really deep. It was more of a 4-2-3-1 and Mount sort of naturally drifts to the left as he did in the first game. So it's quite congested on that left-hand side. And where we played the left back in Shaw, who provided the width, Sterling was coming in and that just all became a bit congested there. And Foden was isolated on the right. And obviously he doesn't play at his best from the right, I don't think. And while he's been quiet, he does need a bit of support. And I'd hope that they switched it up a little bit more. Because getting him in the game is important, and he's been really quiet so far.
I'm trying to think how many times I've seen him play from the right-hand side this season, Jonathan, and there's not really anything leaping out of me. It's been more from the left for Man City, but then I guess that's the problem, that anyone who pretty much plays in the front three, the players that could come in and play on the right prefer to play on the left.
Apart from Sancho.
Apart from Sancho, who gets it,
which was my
may as well not be there.
Which is my argument from the start of why I would start with Sancho.
Yeah.
With the caveat, you need a fullback to get up with him, which Walker can do. I mean, it's not that Walker's not attacking, but maybe that's an argument to, if you do bring Sancho in, maybe that's an argument to keep Reece James in the side. But I think that's all the talk, or the vast majority of the talk since that game has been about personnel, and people are sort of hobby horsing on. Oh well, if English people pay more attention to the Bundesliga, they'd know they have to play Sancho, or they need to play Grealish. It's about the structure. It's not about the people. The players are all good players. Like there might be minor gradations there, but it's about a structure that's not working. And I think what was revealing, I think there is a structural issue, but I think there's also a psychological issue. And both games followed a similar pattern of England started pretty well the first. Say 20 minutes against Croatia, the first 10 minutes against Scotland. And then you saw the faith sort of ebb out of them. And that's what then leads, and it self-perpetuates. The pace of their game gets slower and slower because they're so determined not to make a mistake. The crowd gets more and more worked up, which makes them more and more anxious, which makes them more and more risk averse. So you saw when Grealish came on, the first sort of 5 minutes, he was getting the ball, he was going for little runs. You sort of thought, there is a little injection of energy here. But nobody was going with him. And slowly he got dragged down to the general mess of the game. And when he ends up playing that pass to a substitute, that just tells you the lack of options he had. That there was literally nobody on the pitch who was offering a better option than the man off the pitch. So
it was a brilliant run.
So, I mean, the problem mid-tournament and it's almost a problem of having too many options. What do you do now? Personally, I would play Sancho and move Foden across to the left. That doesn't mean leaving Sterling out for good. It doesn't mean necessarily not bringing him off the bench with half an hour to go, but it does mean sort of thinking, well, the balance of this side isn't quite working. What can we do to shift the balance? And I agree with Martin absolutely that the thing that excited me about this England team was the potential link up between Mount and Foden, and we're playing them 40 yards apart, so they're never going to link up. So you're never going to get that. So I mean, I feel like I'm just repeating what I said before the Croatia game because I was right. They need Sancho on the right. They need Foden on the left. They need an attacking right back linked with Sancho. And maybe the one thing we've seen you can do is to balance. If James plays on the right and plays quite aggressively, maybe you then play Trippier on the left. To offer that extra defensive balance. But I mean, fundamentally, I haven't changed what I've thought at all in the last week or 20 years.
Your last 16 knockout predictions suddenly looking very, very good. Jonathan looking like a clever shout. Mine of us getting to the final, not so much. The big problem is
no team, hardly any team ever goes to the tournament playing brilliantly in all 6 or 7 games and winning every game. It just doesn't happen. So I mean, I know Rod Liddell is a preposterous figure, but for him to be calling for Southgate to be sacked, England have got more points after 2 games than Portugal, the team who went on to win the tournament, had after the entire group stage 5 years ago. So, yeah, it's the absurdity of people who don't really watch or understand football being allowed to pontificate about it.
I guess if you flipped it, Martin, and England had drawn with Croatia and beat Scotland and were sat on 4 points, everyone would probably be being a bit kinder about the national team.
Yeah, I think it was Harry Kane who said the exact same thing. And yeah, I completely agree. But I guess you always want to build rather than have a dip. Well,
there's also the flip side of this, which I guess confirms the point. That Scotland, having gone from defeat to a 0-0 draw, suddenly there's this sort of hysteria and euphoria behind Scotland. And they played well, and I understand why they're excited by a 0-0 draw away against England.
Very excited they were.
But they're the only team in the tournament who hasn't scored a goal yet.
I know, yeah. Graham Souness treating them like they were prime Barcelona. He was excited by that performance.
England needed Billy Gilmore, but they can't have him because he's Scottish. Yeah, he hasn't scored a goal, Graham.
Yeah, Graham Souness was really high on life after that 0-0 draw. I always find celebrating a 0-0 draw, I get that it's a good result for Scotland, but I always find it a little bit bizarre that you're celebrating drawing 0-0.
Well, I don't want to begrudge them their celebrations because they haven't been in a major tournament since 1998. A 0-0 draw against England away is a good result, and it's a result that keeps them with a reasonable chance of getting through to the next stage. It means that third game back at Hampden, there's something riding on it, and there's a danger maybe that they do North Macedonia and already be out. Fine, that's all worth celebrating, and they should celebrate. But there's a difference between celebrating that and this sort of bizarre idea that England must learn from Scotland. England need players like Billy Gilmore. It's just absurd. It's so England clearly, the reason it's worth celebrating is that England have a much better squad than Scotland.
Yeah, and I think England have only had 3 shots on target through the whole tournament so far, Martin. And Harry Kane's, I don't even know if he's been involved in any of those shots on target. I'd be surprised if he was, but he's becoming a bit, I say a problem, because he's not a problem, is he? Because he's our best player and on form. He's going to bang in the goals. The whole team's not playing well, but a lot of the spotlight seems to be falling on Kane. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I was going to say I think it's fair, but it's not fair. But I think maybe what we didn't consider coming into the tournament was Kane's form for England in general this season has not been great. And maybe that's partly to do with that he's actually got better players around him now. And Southgate, there's more pressure on Southgate to get those players playing well. Everyone wants to see Sancho, Sterling, Foden, Grealish. They want to see them all playing well. And where Kane was he was levels above everyone else before, and they had a natural sort of target man to go to, a natural talisman. He's probably less that now. He's only scored 2 goals sort of in this season for England. I think it's in 11 games, and one of those was a penalty. So this isn't a new thing, a new struggle for him. He's only completed the 90 4 times, which surprised me this season as well. So a couple of those games are friendlies and stuff. But what surprised me, obviously, the fact that he's been brought off in both games. You'd say, oh, he's not playing well, and that's fair on Southgate. I'm pleased that he's taking that decision. But Kane's reaction has been a bit, or lack of reaction has been a bit confusing to me. Not that you want your player to kick off, but he just doesn't look surprised, doesn't look that bothered by it. And I just think this, without wanting to speculate too much, I just think there's maybe a little bit more at play. And he's said that he feels as fit as ever, but he certainly doesn't look it. And yeah, just that sort of lack of sort of disgruntlement at being taken off or being given a chance, because he might not be playing well, but if you want a chance to fall to someone, it's Harry Kane, probably arguably in the tournament. So yeah, while he's not been playing well, I'm not sure I would have brought him off in that game, especially not for Rashford to go up front. It's not like Scotland were leaving space in behind to put pace on. Just that didn't make sense to me. I'd have preferred to see Calvert-Lewin if he was going to bring on one of them. So yeah, I understand that Kane's got come under a lot of pressure, and he is of the 9 players that have started both games for England, he is our lowest rated player by a distance. He's actually got a lower rating in his 2 starts than Jude Bellingham has got in 8 minutes, which tells you a fair bit. And on that note as well, Jack Grealish has got a higher rating than Phil Foden's got, and he only played 27 minutes. So there's those two are the problem at the moment. Not that it's all their fault, but the fact that those two have been very sort of quiet. I think that's what we need to try and resolve, really.
Let's talk a little bit about those ratings then. So I think, Jonathan, mine's got a list of England's top-rated players so far. I think the plan is that you're going to try and pick out the top 3 and see if it matches with what Who Scored have down. Is that the case, Martin?
Yeah, you can have a go at it.
Yeah.
If why not?
3 over 7 was it you said before we came on?
4 over 7.
4
actually,
over
yeah.
7.
Well, the third, there's a tie for third. Actually, it's worth saying. So yeah, but I don't know if you think anyone has stood out in particular, Jonathan.
Well, Pickford hasn't done much wrong.
No, he made a great save.
I mean, his distribution maybe isn't quite what it can be. But yeah, one very good save against Scotland. I don't know if that's enough to get him up to 7, but I think he's been, having gone into the tournament is one of the things you're worried about with England. I don't feel particularly concerned by him. Phillips, I thought, was excellent in the first game and wasn't sensational in the second game, but wasn't terrible. So maybe that's enough to keep his average above 7. Mount has been involved less in the second half against Scotland, but sort of more generally. Would they be the 3 best? I suppose. I don't know. Sterling confuses me.
I feel like a goal would boost you up the rankings. The fact that you've scored, I feel that might push you over a 7 overall. And
I sort of think Sterling's off the ball stuff is much better than his on the ball stuff, and that's obviously much harder to calculate and to measure, to register. So whether he's there, I don't know. I mean, I guess the 4 fullbacks, because they've only played 1 game each. Do they come into this or not?
No, not included.
Right.
So
the fact that the defence, England have only conceded 1 expected goal over the 2 games, which is the second best record in the tournament. That suggests the 2 centre backs are doing okay. So okay, I've narrowed it down to a short list of
5.
Okay, here's a question: are these all outfielders?
So, for what it's worth, Pickford is 5th, but he did get over a 7 in that Scotland game. It's just because he didn't really have anything to do in the Croatia game.
So they're all outfielders. So I've narrowed it down to a short list of 4, who are Stones, Mings, Phillips, and Mount.
Bang on. Yeah, bang on.
like a mini little game of Guess Who that was.
It is actually, Mason Mount is actually top with 7.38. Then it's John Stones, 7.15. And then Mings and Phillips are tied on 7.11. So it's, Mount, Stones and Mings are the 2 players who've got us above a 7 in both games, which I think is fair. Then it's Pickford, then Sterling, then Rice, then Foden, and then Kane, which sort of...
I mean, the other thing with Kane, if we can just linger on him slightly... Okay, well, I say the other thing. There's about 5 things I'm about to say, but I'll try and do it quickly. So number 1, we know that he's a better player when he's in rhythm, when he's had a run of games. And his problems scoring in August are well known. He was terrible at the last Euros. And this will sound odd. I don't think he played particularly well at the World Cup despite scoring 6 goals. 6 goals.
I agree, yeah.
3 of those were penalties. corners were involved, but I didn't think he was anywhere near his best. So there's a rhythm problem there, and I don't quite know how you get around that. I mean, maybe you flog him through the 2 friendlies beforehand to try and get him into that. I know, again, this is where you have a problem in international football as opposed to club football. The club football, you just sort of say, "We'll keep playing him in 3 or 4 weeks; he'll be fine." 3 or 4 weeks, the tournament's finished. Mm-hmm. So, what do? Calvert-Lewin is a clear. I mean, I think he's a drop down in quality, but he's also just a different type of player. Could you play Foden as a false 9? Well, yeah, maybe you could. I quite like that idea in some ways. Don't do that a week into a tournament. That's got to be something you build up to over a period of several months. So basically, Kane has to play because there's nobody else. And maybe, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, maybe this is why they should have taken Ollie Watkins. That he at least he is somebody who's vaguely. I mean, they should have taken Bamford. Clearly, is the truth of it as the closest like for like. But they just. Kane has to play, and I guess to be sympathetic to him, he's had minimal service. Yeah. I don't know how many touches he's had, but I bet it won't be 100 over 2 games.
He's had 6 in the opposition box, and there are about 8 fullbacks at the tournament who've had more. So that says a lot.
So it's very hard to impress when you're just not getting any service. So. And also, that thing of him dropping deep, which England should incorporate because it's one of his great strengths. Well, they just haven't. But that link up we were hoping for with Sterling hasn't worked. But then again, they've played against 2 teams who've sat quite deep against them, as the Czechs will, and you sort of feel that way of playing is better against a higher line, which they won't face till later in the tournament. And that's again one of the massive problems with international football, that the what gets you through a group, what makes you impressive in winning a group game, isn't necessarily what's going to get you past a France or an Italy or a Portugal or whoever later in the tournament.
I mean, some of this is down to the press, like you said as well. When I say the press, I mean the media, not the physical pressing during a game. But, in the World Cup in 2018, you're right, Kane wasn't sensational. But no, he was there to put the ball in the back of the net, and that's what he was doing. But England had that set system. Everyone seemed to know what they were doing. There wasn't talk about who should be playing. There was maybe one debate in central midfield about in the big games whether you play Henderson and Dyer together and drop one of Lingard and Ali. And there's just debates all over the place at the moment, mate. Everyone's got their idea of what the team should be. And there is almost too many good players to pick from, and Southgate needs to try and squeeze them in. And it does just feel like panic stations.
Yeah, it does a bit. Yeah, I can't really build on that, to be honest. Even
it's a totally different dynamic, though, isn't it? Because the World Cup, Tunisia are a difficult team to play against, and England just about got away with that one. Then they smashed Panama. And suddenly, they're on easy street. It doesn't matter then. The Belgium game wasn't particularly good, but it didn't matter. They played pretty well in beating Colombia and Sweden, but they're sort of mid-ranking opposition, not top level. And then that way of playing was exposed in the second half against Croatia. So you're not. I mean, I'm not saying that Scotland are better than those teams, but they provided a challenge that was, I think, harder for England to overcome than certainly Colombia or Sweden.
Yeah.
What are you doing team-wise? Then you're picking the team for Tuesday night, Jonathan. You get obviously Jadon Sancho's coming in, as you already said. Are you bringing Maguire back in? Is Henderson coming back into play at all?
No, I think I keep the back 4. Keep the 2 centre backs and the 3 midfielders the same. I think I'd keep Reece James on the right and Trippier on the left, because I think I want James getting forward to link with Sancho, and then Trippier gives you that balance. I'm playing Foden on the left and still Kane, and unfortunately dropping Sterling, which I don't really want to do, but I just think you need a right-sided presence to let Foden play on the left.
Yeah, need a genuine right side option.
And also somebody who doesn't just dither every time he gets a crossing opportunity, or shooting opportunity.
Decisiveness.
It's all very well to say, he's making great runs, and but actually do something when you've got at the end of it. That's becoming problematic.
Martin, put your waistcoat on. Have a go.
Mine's quite different. There is obviously that debate about how much you sort of chop and change for this last game. I've changed a fair bit. So obviously Pickford in goal. I've gone for Trippier right back. Maguire, if he's fit, basically. I'd play Maguire, start Maguire at least, but only if he's fit. It's a big question mark. So I've gone Maguire and Mings actually, just to keep the balance of the right foot, left foot. Not because I think Mings has been better than.
I can tell you categorically that will not happen. 100%.
I just think when Maguire is fit, and they're hoping he'll be fit for the knockouts, I think Mings's time at the tournament is essentially up. I think there'll be some goodwill towards Mings in that he's played very well so far, and maybe Southgate will say, look, you've deserved this last game. We're bringing back Maguire. You can play this one, but Stones is coming back for the knockouts. So I don't know. I just think, just for the balance, I think there's not been much between Mings and Stones so far, so I would stick with Mings. And I've gone for Chilwell, just to give him some minutes, give him a chance to prove himself, to compete for that spot. Then in midfield, I've gone for a midfield three of Mount, Henderson again, if he's fit, only if he's fit. Otherwise, I would stick with Rice, I think, and Bellingham. I just think we need energy in there. I just think the last game against Scotland, it was so dour in that sort of middle of the pitch. And I just think even that 8 minutes that he came on against Croatia, he really sort of had some drive about him. And I just think we may well need that, because it might be a bit hard to get up for this game. And then I've gone for Sancho on the right, Kane in the middle, and Grealish on the left.
I thought Grealish might come in on the left. Had a little hunch. I mean, this is the thing. There's so many good options. Like I'm not having a go at you at all, mind you. You're picking your team there. That would mean 3 different left backs in 3 games. It just seems preposterous. That's a thing that you can do.
Yeah,
not you personally, but in general,
I don't think anyone was expecting Trippier to play left back, were they? In that first game, was Chilwell in the squad for the Scotland game? I didn't actually check that. Was he in the squad?
He was on the bench. Yeah,
was he on the bench?
He was on the bench for the first game.
I just think he deserves a chance to stake a claim. Luke Shaw did okay, but didn't set the world alight. So I think he deserves a chance personally.
I think this is the problem. People aren't going to set the world alight unless they play consecutive games. You're taking people out and changing it every match. There's going to be rhythmic problems. What do you think of his team, Jonathan?
It's fine. I mean, I'd be concerned about how open that midfield is, but I mean, it is a problem. There are so many options. But I like the solidity of the midfield they've got. I like the fact that they're not giving up chances. I think fundamentally you win. I mean, Italy may disprove me here, because I think Italy have been brilliant so far, not playing this way. But I think fundamentally you win international tournaments by being solid and not that exciting.
Well, we'll see what happens on Tuesday then. Big game for England yet again at Wembley. We move on now to the just a minute section. It's going to have to be a very trusting just a minute section, because my phone is over there charging, so I don't have a stopwatch in front of me. So guys, you all both set up and ready to go for that? I'm going to trust you. Martin, North Macedonia against the Netherlands for you.
Well, North Macedonia are one of only 2 teams that are definitely eliminated at the time of recording. They've done better than many expected by simply scoring in both their matches to date. Even if they can't pick up a point, another goal would be more than a respectable way to bow out on their major tournament debut. And they've certainly not sat back and parked the bus to now. Having entered the tournament in patchy form at best, the Dutch are already guaranteed top spot in Group C, courtesy of wins over Ukraine and Austria. As such, Frank de Boer is likely to make some changes, but striking the balance between avoiding fatigue and breaking the rhythm of the side is a problem that many will have to face this week. Frankie de Jong has been one of the players of the tournament so far, in my opinion, carrying the ball with consummate ease to complete the most dribbles after 2 rounds of fixtures. He only completed 5 dribbles in a game on 1 occasion in the league last season, and he's done so in both games at the Euros so far. It's been confirmed that he'll be joined at Barcelona by Memphis Depay next season this week as well, so that's something else off the field. Goran Pandev is one player who wants to sign off in style with the longevity of his career, highlighted by the fact that he scored in a 2-2 draw against the Netherlands 17 years ago. It's mad. But yeah, I think they'll score again. I'm going for 3-1 Netherlands.
Yeah, and you can talk about De Jong all you like, Martin, but you know what Holland need? They need a Billy Gilmore. Never mind you De Jongs. Jonathan, Ukraine, Austria for you.
This is effectively a shootout for second in the group. Both have 3 points. Ukraine have scored more goals, and therefore a draw is good enough for them. Alexander Zubkov isn't there for them on the left, so Malinovsky pushed up in that game against North Macedonia. I assume he'll play there again. He was very impressive there, continuing that form from the end of the season from Atalanta. Yarmolenko and Yaremchuk have both scored 2 goals each. So that question of do Ukraine have enough goals in them Well, those two certainly do. They're both in form at the moment. I think you look at the way Austria play, a very sort of sluggish back three. I think the spacing behind the fullbacks, and you can imagine Yarmolenko, Malinovsky exploiting that. At the other end, you think Line going down the right for Austria. He might fancy his chance against Mikolenko, the Ukrainian left back, who hasn't had a great tournament. I don't think Austria have worked out where to play Alaba yet. Arnautovic might come back. Kalajic might start, but I think Ukraine are too good and should win 2-1.
Lovely stuff. Finland, Belgium, Martin.
Both of these sides could technically still top Group B come the final whistle tonight, while the team that finishes runner-up in this group will face Wales. The Belgians made an extremely sluggish start to their match against Denmark, and whilst the introduction of the fit-again Kevin De Bruyne swung the game in their favour, their fragility came to the fore, conceding 21 shots across the 90 minutes. The manner of that man De Bruyne's return spells trouble for whomever the Belgians meet in the round of 16, however. The goal, an assist, and 5 out of 5 dribbles completed in a stunning 45-minute display. Eden Hazard also looked bright off the bench, setting up the match winner, while Axel Witsel was also able to step up his fitness after a long injury with a second-half cameo. Finland will no doubt sit deep, knowing that a draw may well be enough to book a place in the next round of the tournament debut. They've had to rely on their defence even more so than usual, given the lack of fitness of Teemu Pukki. So to be in this position is a great achievement in itself. Bizarrely, these sides have met 6 times since the turn of the millennium, and Finland have won 3 and drawn 3. But extending that unbeaten run would be a massive shock. So I'm going for 2-0 Belgium.
Fair enough. Just thinking about Belgium then, it's what Jonathan was saying about England. Belgium won't win the tournament because of their defence, whereas England have got that sturdy base, and maybe they could get better as it goes on. But that's just me thinking out loud. Jonathan, time now for you, Russia, Denmark.
Well, both these teams will be hoping that Belgium do beat Finland. Russia have 3 points, Denmark don't have any. But if Denmark were to win and to score at least 2 goals, then they would go through in second place, were Finland to lose. It's likely to be another extraordinary atmosphere in Copenhagen. I think the Christian Eriksen factor is still there. I think there's a real sense that there's a lot of energy there and a lot of emotion in the game against Belgium, and perhaps they went too hard from the start and ended up wearing themselves out a bit. I think it'll be a little bit more restrained this time. But I think the shape Denmark played in that game suited them. They went to a back three. I think that made them look a little bit more inventive going forward. And it brought Damsgaard into the side, and his dribbling gave him another option, which they haven't had recently. And you imagine his quick feet against slow Russian defenders maybe being quite productive. The other end, you've got Juba against Simon Kjær, and I think unless Juba wins that battle, I can't really see how Russia get a goal here. So Denmark to win it 2-0.
Finland, Belgium, Martin.
Just done.
No, I've just done that, yeah.
Oh no, don't do them. Don't do that again. Do Croatia, Scotland instead.
Oh, you're always going on about Finland, Belgium. It's like Mason Mount.
Yeah, this is a huge match in Group D. Nothing other than a win will do for either side. Both teams have really struggled for a cutting edge in the final third. Although while Croatia have had just 19 shots all tournament and been let down by a lack of creativity, it's Scotland's finishing that has been found wanting. Steve Clarke's side have had more shots than their opponents in both matches thus far, but the only team yet to score at the tournament at the time of recording. Only Denmark and Italy had more attempts at goal in the opening 2 games than Scotland, so they need someone to take a chance and become a hero. Croatia made 4 changes against the Czechs and will have felt hard done by a baffling penalty decision, but they need to carve out more chances from open play. This could be the game for Nikola Vlasic to come into the fold with that in mind. Steve Clarke also made 4 changes in round 2, and they all justified their selection. The midfield trio of Billy Gilmore, Callum McGregor and John McGinn looked very solid, but they'll need to be on top form once again to get a result here. I'm going for Croatia 1, Scotland 1, and both teams to crash out, unfortunately.
The jitters now. I feel like the crowd's on my back that I'm picking out the right game. Jonathan, is it Sweden v Poland for you next?
Yeah, it is. Well done.
There we go. Thank you.
So this is top v bottom in that group. Sweden with 4 points, Poland with 1. This feels like it could be another tournament disappointment for Poland, having gone in with quite high hopes. But they will look back to that Slovakia game and wonder how on earth they lost that. You know, they were 1-1 on top when Krychowiak was sent off, just a stupid challenge for a deserved second yellow. But they came back. They played well against Spain. They played slightly against the way I think Paulo Sousa wants to play by playing on the break, but they were effective. Here, they're going to have to take the game to Sweden because Sweden's instinct always is to sit deep. They both games so far at the tournament, they just haven't wanted the ball, apart from possibly about 10 minutes in the second half against Slovakia, which was a terrible game of football. Poland have only won one of their last 9, and that's the only game which they've kept a clean sheet. And I think those defensive issues are a big problem. You can imagine the pace of Alexander Isak really troubling them if they are trying to push a little bit higher. I think a lot depends on Lewandowski. If they can get up to support him, then maybe Poland can score and cause an upset. But I suspect this one's going to be 1-1 and Poland to go out.
Slovakia, Spain, Martin.
Yeah, as predicted, Slovakia made no real attempt to win their game against Sweden, failing to have a single shot on target in what was a tiresome watch. Their lack of ambition didn't pay off, however, and they're now left needing a result against the Spain side that must win to avoid an embarrassing group stage exit. Luis Enrique's men were the only side to draw each of their opening 2 games, averaging a remarkable 72.6% possession so far, which is at least 15% more than any other team in the first 2 round of matches. In that sense, they seem to have reverted to type, having seemingly looked to go more direct under Enrique in the build-up. Spain made just one change against Poland, but surely need to freshen things up with the likes of Thiago and Mikel Oyarzabal yet to start, and Adama Traore not even making an appearance from the bench. In a somewhat predictable side so far, his pace and power would surely be a weapon in this must-win game, with Slovakia unlikely to pose much of a threat in the opposite direction. Spain's quality should win out, but they need to be more dynamic and ruthless in attack against another deep block. I'm going to go for Spain 2-0.
Jonathan, you're going to finish with Germany against Hungary.
I think in a strange way, Hungary won't have been too disappointed to see Germany's victory against Portugal. Although Germany were sensational going forward, the 2 wing-backs switching play brilliantly between them, causing Portugal all kinds of problems out wide. I think Hungary look at that and think, well, we can stop that with our wing-backs. We play with a back 3. If our wing-backs sit deep, there's no space for Gersons and Kimmich. And as long as we win the aerial balls, and we should, looking at our defenders, then that threat that absolutely ripped Portugal apart shouldn't be too dangerous for us. I mean, it's dangerous because they're good players, but Hungary have the players to stop that. And then in the other direction, Portugal looked dangerous every time they counter-attacked. I mean, looked really dangerous from set plays. And Hungary's threat anyway was going to come from set plays and from counter-attacks. You look at Szollai and Salah up front, I think they work much harder than Cristiano Ronaldo. So I don't think it's going to be as easy for Germany to play it from the back. So although Germany should win this, I can see reasons for Hungary to hope that they could finally get revenge for the World Cup final of 1954. But Germany to win at 3-1.
Lovely. Well done to both of you there on the Just a Minute section. We're now going to move on and talk to our friends at Bet Victor. We're joined once again by Sam Boswell to go through all the movers and shakers in the markets ahead of round 3. Sam, thanks ever so much for joining us yet again on the Edge of the Box Euro 2020 podcast. Not a great night for England on Friday, but I imagine a good one for Bet Victor.
Yeah, a 0-0 draw in any league, in any event is always pretty popular for the bookmakers. Disappointing effort from England, wasn't it? But we have to draw on the positives, don't we? And it is 2 clean sheets in a row for Gareth Southgate's men. And in the grand scheme of things, shouldn't be the biggest issue in the world going forward. It's just a case of having to put it behind us. I think if it hadn't been Scotland, the media might have been just a little bit kinder to Gareth. And we'll touch on some of the problems the England team face. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have got to say about England and how they move forward in this next game.
Let's talk about that Czech Republic game on Tuesday then. What's going on with the market, Sam?
England's short price favourite, as you'd expect, 4-7, 5-2 the draw, 6-1 the Czech Republic to cause an upset and put Gareth Southgate under some real pressure. We've got loads of boosts already on the site. If you think we're going to see a fast starting England, they're 13-8 from 6-4 for the half-time, full-time market. England to win, both teams to score. 7-2 from 100-30 now. Other things just to mention, obviously, the clean sheet record. England have been going great guns. If you think that's going to continue in terms of our ability to defend, which is always a good thing. The win to nil price would interest me. 7-5 England to win to nil. We've got to talk about Harry Kane. Gareth Southgate has confirmed that he will start the game, which I think is interesting given everything that's been going on. He's out to around 20-1 top goal scorer now for the actual tournament. First England goal scorer, we've got him chalked up at 2-1. First goal scorer overall 13-5. I'd like to think that Harry will get a goal. He's 11-8 any time as well. Just to give a quick mention, England themselves now as big as 8-1 at time of recording to win the tournament, which I think is pretty much the biggest they've been since betting opened. Obviously, doesn't look like the Bet Victor traders have been too impressed by the English side so far. Harry Kane, a little disappointing, but I don't think it's fair that he's been scapegoated with everything. He's got to finish the chances. England are going to have to create a bit more. And fingers crossed we see that on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be putting the curses on him here completely, but he can't go another game without a goal, Harry Kane. That just feels like something that would never, ever happen. So, yeah, I think people should get on that. Kane will score on Tuesday night. Are France still the favourites? Obviously, they had a disappointing game against Hungary. Are they still the favourites now, or have Italy moved up and around after 3 wins out of 3?
That's a really interesting question. We have still got the French very short in there at 7-2. The Italians 5-1. Obviously, they've come through the group, haven't they? Italy in great style. My question mark would be, I think, having sat through the 90 minutes and seen the Welsh play pretty well, I just don't think the Italians have been that tested yet. And I think 5-1 is possibly getting a bit skinny. The Germany price has changed big time on the result of the fact that they actually turned up and pretty impressive against Portugal in part, 6-1. Belgium 7-1. England, as I said, 8-1. And Portugal out to 10-1 after that 4-2 loss. Spain is still in there at 11-1, which surprises me given their results so far. I think I'd much rather be backing the Dutch at 12s and the Spanish at 11s, but that's just my opinion. Interesting to see how the market shapes up. Before I leave you, I will just give a mention. If you haven't already got a BetVictor account, do head over to betvictor.com because we're giving you up to £20 back on your first bet if it loses throughout the Euro, so you can get involved there and sign up. We've got all the usual markets that the guys will talk you through and some pretty special ones for the Euros.
Lovely stuff. Thanks as ever for joining us, Sam. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
No problem. Fingers crossed England get the job done. And we look forward to the knockouts.
Right, we're going to look now at Portugal v France in a little more detail, Jonathan. Portugal, they're quite fun to watch because they've got good players going forward, but they cannot defend to save their lives. What do you make of them?
Well, that's sort of the opposite of what we were expecting. That their strength over the last 5 years has been being really boring. Sitting with the 2 holding midfielders, the fullbacks not being particularly progressive, and then relying on nicking something up front. I think they have got a bit more proactive since the last Euros, and I think the team that won the Nations League was significantly better to watch than that side. And I sort of thought this tournament might fall just right for them. That Ronaldo, I think, has not quite dipped that far from his peak, and he does still provide goals. 3 in the tournament so far, plus 11 in qualifying. But I think his lack of mobility, and obviously he can still sprint the length of the pitch in 14.5 seconds. We've seen that, but his sort of general lack of mobility, his unwillingness to press opponents, I think that's beginning to become a problem. And I think they really missed João Cancelo in that game against Germany. That Semedo is just not as good a player, and so they did get pulled apart in wide areas. So, I mean, they got one more point than they had at this stage 5 years ago, and they went on to win it. So let's not write them off. But they've got to defend an awful lot better than they did against Germany.
Yeah, Semedo got really targeted at the weak link in that game, I thought, at the weekend. France, a little bit of struggles as well, Martin. Perhaps a little bit fortunate to come away with a point, but you do have to give Hungary credit. I thought they did ever so well.
Yeah, I think so much of that was down to the crowd, wasn't it? It's so great to see.
Love the full house.
We've mentioned it before, but that clearly had a massive impact on sort of rousing those players, because the work rate of the entire team for the entire match was really, really impressive. And like Jonathan says, particularly the forward players as well. Roland Shalai had a great game, gave Benjamin Pavard all sorts of problems all game. So he played really well. And just, that press, I just thought France just struggled a little bit to sort of match the intensity of Hungary, which maybe you can forgive because of that crowd. But yeah, it wasn't particularly convincing. And obviously where Hungary sat back for a lot of the game, they did struggle to break them down. I thought France played quite well for a period in the first half. But yeah, after a while, they sort of ran out of ideas a little bit. Paul Pogba wasn't as influential as he was in that first game, just because, again, they just didn't give him any time on the ball. They didn't give him any space at all to sort of pull the strings. And I think that was, they maybe targeted Pogba in that sense, and that really worked for them. So yeah, I think it shows like there's only really one way to play against France, and it's not the way that Germany played. They're outstanding on the counter. You just can't let them counter you. You can't let Kylian Mbappe counter you. It's pretty basic. So a lot of teams in the round of 16 will look at that performance moving forward, and they'll look at sort of nullifying Pogba and sitting deep. And I think it's exactly what Portugal will do. That's what Fernando Santos wants to do. That's within him to try and do that. So I think this game probably suits them better than the Germany one did. So I don't expect it to be as high scoring personally.
Yeah, the Benzema return hasn't really took off yet, has it, Jonathan?
No, it hasn't. I mean, I think there's all kinds of problems with that forward line at the minute that it just doesn't quite fit together. And I guess that's why Benzema was brought in, because it wasn't fitting together. That they were beating teams, but there was no sort of fluidity there. And even bringing Dembele on, and so going sort of with width on both sides didn't really work for them. So yeah, there's definitely still questions there. I mean, I suspect Giroud won't get the call, but if you were Giroud, you'd be sitting there thinking, well, hang on, 3 years ago we won the World Cup, and now we can't beat Hungary, and I was playing them and I'm not playing here. So I think if it doesn't work out, that is a question that Deschamps might find quite hard to answer.
Yeah, and back to Portugal, Martin. They might do whether Bruno Fernandes actually turned up.
Yeah, it's so quiet, wasn't he? So anonymous in that game. I think he had created one chance, but no shots, no dribbles, no tackles. 2 tackles attempted, dribble pass both times.
83 games in the last 14 months he's played.
Yeah, I completely agree. We mentioned it in the pods before. I think he just looked tired towards the end of the season, certainly in the Europa League final as well. There's a lot of people that say obviously he doesn't turn up for these games, these big games, but I think that's probably a little bit harsh. I do agree that, he just looks really, really fatigued. And obviously they played the two in sort of Danilo Pereira and William Carvalho, but they're just not the powers they once were. William Carvalho's never kicked on and become the player that many sort of predicted when he was a youngster. So I'd expect them to freshen things up in midfield for this game. I personally would like to see Renato Sanchez play. I think he's been really good when he's come off the bench for them. He's one of the players who's looked bright, but at the same time, I think they'll sit deep, and that's not his natural game. So there might be a call for him to come in for Fernandes, but that would be a very, very big call. But I'd like to see him play. But I think certainly one of those two has to drop out, surely.
Yeah, and you've got a combined 11 for us, haven't you, Martin, of the two teams?
I do, yeah. So we've done this based on the sort of predicted lineups of the two sides. So it's Laurence in goal ahead of Patricio. It is actually Nelson Semedo ahead of Benjamin Pavard, who I touched on before. I just don't think Benjamin Pavard's a right back. He's played there a lot, but he's a natural centre back, and I just don't fancy. I never fancied him there. I don't think he's been particularly good for Bayern. He's been solid enough, but yeah, you saw with a player of sort of modest ability, and Roland Salai tore him to shreds. Really, just gave him all sorts of problems. So it is actually Nelson Semedo. I think it's by 0.01 in the ratings ahead of Benjamin Pavard for what it's worth, and it is actually an all Portugal back line based on ratings last season. So Diaz is partnered by Pepe ahead of Varane and Kimpembe, who we've touched on a lot. A lot of people would have Varane, obviously, and he played very well against Germany, but not so good against Hungary, I didn't think. I think it's a problem that France's best centre-back plays for Spain, personally. And then Rafael Guerreiro at left-back over Luca Hernandez. The midfield, as you'd predict, is Kante, Pogba, and Bruno Fernandes, which sounds like a pretty decent midfield, doesn't it, to be fair? And then a front three of Mbappe, Ronaldo, and Benzema. So a decent front, what's that, 6? But yeah, the defences aren't the strong point in these sides. So I think there could be goals, but at the same time, I think both teams will probably play it a little bit cautious, personally.
Jonathan, imagine you'd have Kimpembe in your team.
I mean, no, clearly I wouldn't. I was just thinking kind of other countries must look at Gareth Southgate picking 4 really good right backs to his squad and just think he's just taunting us.
Well, Portugal, that was like their strength, wasn't it? They looked like set at right back in terms of Cancelo had a fantastic season, but obviously Ricardo Pereira, who's an outstanding right back as well, but he's been injured for so long. So what was arguably their strongest position in their squad is now their weakest.
So what you're saying is 2's never enough. It's worth taking 4 to a tournament.
You need 4 right backs. Yeah.
But no, I would not have Kimpembe. I'm interested Pepe gets him. I guess Varane just didn't have a particularly good season, but
yeah.
I completely understand Ruben Diaz being there. And I presumably Cancelo, where he fit, would be
streets ahead. Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, for once, I agree with one of these teams. It seems to make sense.
Yay!
It's a good team, but as we said, there's problems at right back. Was anyone close to getting in, Martin?
Well, Griezmann's the one who obviously is the big name who misses out. He wasn't particularly close to getting in just because didn't have a very strong season. But of France's front three, I've been probably most impressed by him personally. Mbappe's obviously been really bright in parts, but Griezmann, certainly his work rate's been remarkable. I know he is a hard-working player for the national team, but yeah, these first two games, he's arguably done more defensively than in attack. He's featured in the last 50 games for France now, which is a stunning stat. Played every single game for France since 2017. It's mad.
We've also got a Germany v Hungary bet builder, haven't we, Martin?
No. Portugal, France.
Oh, bloody hell. We've also got a bet builder for the Portugal v France game, haven't we, Martin?
We do indeed, yeah. We got one of them right last time. I was going good for England-Scotland bet builder after 15 minutes. John McGinn yellow card.
Yeah, I did it
With the yellow. I was like, oh, this is coming home. Not even close to the end, unfortunately, but we're going to do better this week. I'm confident. So we are going for a couple of cards again. We are going for N'Golo Kante to be carded. Based on the fact that he's been booked 10 times this season in all competitions. He's got 8 yellow cards in 21 matches across the Euros, World Cup and Nations League for France. So lovely little chap, but he gets a bit aggy on the international stage. So we're going for Kante to be carded. And this is a little bit of a risk, but like I said earlier, I do hope and I do think personally that Renato Sanchez might start. So we're going for him to be booked as well. He's got 8 yellows for club and country this season, despite starting just 23 competitive matches. He was booked on his last competitive international start, and he's been booked twice from the bench this season too. So even if he does start on the bench, doesn't rule the bet out straight away. Fingers crossed he starts. When you include qualifiers, we are going with Cristiano Ronaldo to score any time, because when you include qualifiers, Ronaldo has scored in each of his last 8 Euros appearances, scoring 14 goals. He's now only 2 goals short of Ali Dai's international goal record, and he's clearly desperate to at least match that at this summer's tournament. So in good form, I think he'll have a couple of chances in this game. So hopefully Ronaldo finds the net. So Kante to be carded, Renato Sanchez to be carded, and Ronaldo to score has been boosted to 33-1 by Bet
That's
Victor.
Good. That's long.
So,
that's long, Bet Victor.
Nice price there. So yeah, again, in this description, we'll have our tips page. We'll put all the reasoning out on social media again to get involved in that one.
We will finish then with a treble tips Bet Victor section. How did we get on with our last shout, Martin?
Well, you tell us, Dan. How did we get on?
I know mine didn't come through.
Yours didn't come through, and mine and Jonathan's did, Dan.
I've killed us.
You let the team down.
I mean, it's so unlucky. Mbappe. You think Mbappe's going to score against Hungary, don't you? You just assume it's going to happen.
This was your reasoning. I told you need to back it up, Dan. Not just, he's really good.
I've cost us. I apologise. All I can do is apologise to you two. I can apologise to people that watch and listen to the podcast. Apologise to Who Scored in general. Bet Victor will be patting me on the back, thinking, "What a guy!" Yeah, but I don't know what else I can do. There's nothing else I can do. What have we gone for this week?
Back with a tip this week.
You wouldn't let me. I mean, probably rightly so. Wouldn't even let me choose what I wanted this week. That's how low I've fallen.
You can say what your original tip was if you like. It's ballsy.
You explain what we're doing.
So we've got Wednesday's games we're looking at this week for a treble. Obviously, there's 4 games, so we've picked out 3 of them. Dan's looked at the France-Portugal game. I'll let him sort of discuss what he's gone for there.
Yeah, because I've got such a reliable reputation with France. We've let me stick with them. So I wanted to pick both teams to score in both halves, because I think there's going to be a lot of goals in that game, and I don't think neither team look particularly clever defensively. So I wanted to do that, but Martin told me that was too long.
Put it this way, Dan, the odds on that are longer than what they are on our treble combined.
So instead, I've been given the simplicity of just both teams to score in general. That's what I've gone for, because I think both teams will score. There we go.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers. Yeah, I've gone for. I'm on Spain. I'm on the Spain-Slovakia game. And yeah, just based on the fact that Slovakia are pretty dreadful. Sounds like one of Dan's reasons, really. But yeah, Slovakia are not good. They didn't have a single shot on target against Sweden. They've only had 2 at Euro 2020, which is the fewest. Spain have kept 7 clean sheets and conceded just 8 goals in 15 internationals this season. So I'm going for Spain to win 2-0. So without conceding, not 2-0.
And Jonathan, what game have you got?
Got the Poland v Sweden game. Given that I assume this game will be played almost entirely in the Sweden half. I mean, Sweden's defensive record is very good. They conceded 1 in the last 7 games. But I sort of think the level of Polish pressure should break them down. And if Poland scores, it's likely to be Lewandowski. So I've gone for Lewandowski, the same bet that Martin had last time.
Yeah, Lewandowski's done well for us so far. So yeah, if you want to take heed of that, Martin, how can people do it?
Yeah, so we'll have the link in the sort of description below to our boosts page, and we'll put this out on social as well. So that's been boosted from 6-1 to 7-1 for the treble. Dan's original tip of Portugal and France to score in both halves was 9-1 on its own.
I'm going to back it.
Go for it, mate. Yeah,
that money I won from Lukaku scoring twice has already gone straight back to Bet Victor. So.
yeah, boosted to 7-1. I think it's a nice. It's not a huge price, but I think personally, I think those are all decent tips. So I'll be backing it.
Yeah, good stuff. Then that just about does us for this week's show in association with Bet Victor. Thanks ever so much for them for sponsoring us and providing us with the boost and getting involved in the podcast in general. Thanks to Martin and Jonathan as well. Always a pleasure to speak to you both. As I mentioned, this is episode 4 of 8. So if you want to subscribe to the Who Scored and get your post notifications on, you'll know exactly when the next podcast is coming out. Enjoy all the football. Have a good day.